Yes, it is started. Take over, Sheetal.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining the session today. We are excited to have you all here for the topic that we'll be discussing, which is planning in the age of AI and global tariff and what it means for APAC supply chain planning, right? And I'm excited to have all of you here. I'll start off with a very quick introduction of myself and about the company that I represent. So I take care of operation myself, Sheetal. I handle all the sales and operation at Anamind. To talk about Anamind very briefly, I'll do a quick um, intro and presentation. So let me know once my screen is visible.
Yes, it is. It is.
Perfect. So, as part of the company that I represent, which is Anamind, we help companies build supply chain robust uh, planning capability. We have worked with a variety of companies in different geographies and space. We have been recognized by Economic Times Edge as one of the promising brand of 2023. And we have also been recognized by various other industry, companies. Now, as part of our offering, we have four different offerings in place. I'll not take a lot of your time. I'll just be very quick, which is where I'll talk about planning systems, where we provide a host of solutions from demand planning to inventory optimization, production planning, scheduling to FP&A analysis. We also offer planning as a service where we offer AI systems. Along with that, we offer the resource expertise. So it's very fast setup and engagement method where we work very closely with our customers to bring changes and ensure that there is improvement that gets seen. So there are various opportunities that we have over here where we help companies set up the best planning processes and handle and manage the planning piece. We also offer planning intelligence where we have a platform where the users can upload the data on a regular basis and also then get automated reports and dashboards which they can consume. So there is a lot of time that goes in analysis and not on really creating those reports out there. Finally, we have planning workshops in place where we offer system agnostic training on supply chain planning and processes. We cover both the qualitative as well as quantitative technique of planning and offer process best practices, information, and hands on learning approach. So, a very quick intro of Anamind. I'm very excited to be part of this webinar and I look forward to hearing from all the speakers out there. I'll hand it over to Manish. We also have Vasudha, Arjun, and Harrison today, but I'll let them introduce themselves. Over to you, Manish.
Hey, thanks, Sheetal. That was great. I'm sure all of you who are listening in could get some idea of what Anamind does and probably will trigger some thoughts as you listen into the conversations that will follow of what you guys or your companies could do with Anamind. When I see this topic, and I remember Rishi and I meeting up actually for the first time a few months back only, and the company that I represent, the one that I have founded, and can probably see it behind me as a filler already, which is accelerators. I wouldn't say too much about the company except that it's made of two words, excellence and acceleration, and I've just clubbed it into one word which is not in the Queen's English dictionary at all. That is the accelerators. So we aim to accelerate the excellence journey of an enterprise. But that's all that I would say about the company as of now. I'll come to the topic first and just give you a sense of it and what it makes me feel right now, which is planning in the age of AI and tariff-induced disruption, literally makes me feel as if I come from a different age, right? When I started my career 25 years back, obviously, the word artificial intelligence existed, but nobody really talked about it at all. So artificial intelligence, as a lot of you know, existed in very different form, very different way, and we give it different names today, and we don't call it AI, which it existed. But obviously, someone like me had no clue when I started my career. So it's a very different age in a way, and people like me who are as young as others have to adapt and still bring a huge difference to this new age with our knowledge of the previous age, but also unlearning things of the previous age and bringing it into the new age. So that's very critical. That was a little bit about my company and myself. My name is Manish Akalya, as some of you would have seen on the invite. And what I would do now is I will ask the panelists to quickly introduce themselves. So maybe Vasudha, we could start with you, and then I will take the stage back after the three panelists have introduced themselves. So Vasudha, over to you, please.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Manish. I'm Vasudha. I'm supply chain director for Kenview, and those who are kind of trying to figure out what organization is this. So you must have previously heard about Johnson & Johnson Consumer Health. At some point of time, Kenview kind of separated itself from overall Johnson & Johnson umbrella. And I've spent almost 18 odd years with J&J and now Kenview across various geographies, which is India, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, and have been in Australia for last 1.5 years. So thanks a lot, Manish and Sheetal, for setting this conversation. I think it's very interesting and relevant for all the supply chain practitioners. With this, maybe I'll hand over to Arjun.
Thanks a lot, Vasudha. Hello, everyone, and I'm super happy to be here because I think this topic is something which puzzles everyone, especially in the current context of the things. To quickly introduce myself, I'm Arjun. I've been in supply chain industry for last 13 plus years. I've been associated with Decathlon all my life. So I'm a Decathlonian at heart. Decathlon is a sports giant in the world. Some of you, and I hope most of you know it. Personally, I've done a lot of zigzag in Decathlon, in supply chain, logistics, procurement, category management, and in different demographies of India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Cambodia, and moving to Singapore next week. Today, I take care as the commercial director for the country, and I'm super happy to be here. Over to you, Harrison.
Thank you, Arjun. I'm actually thrilled to join this webinar. It's very relevant, right, for everyone now, given the disruptions we're facing constantly since COVID, I think. And now we have tariff, we have inflation of raw material prices, and maybe that's where I think it's going to be a exciting discussions we have. I think everybody's trying to understand with the changing nature of the AI sort of context. There's a lot of tool on the market, right? But then how to use that is the question mark in everyone's mind. Harrison, I think I'm currently leading the EMEA, APAC plus Middle East and Africa, end-to-end planning transformation, a director. Actually, across overall my 19 years supply chain, I've been mainly working for 4 companies, and there is a crossover for sure with my dear friend Masuda in J&J Consumer before I actually joined Mondelez to embark on our journey of transformation for planning, which is literally I'm doing, right, to leverage this AI technologies to transform our overall planning capability to support the business in growth and in profitability. I also worked for industries in consumer electronics from Sony and also sports goods, Nike, as well as the Lego in consumer as a kids sort of a product where everybody wants that, even the adults today. So I think across my experiences in multi-brand companies like J&J Consumer, Mondelez, I think we're facing different stage of using different AI. I think that's why I'm happy to talk about this topic. Yeah, so excited. I'm hand over back to you, Manish, to steer our talks. Yeah.
Thank you, Harrison, and thanks to Vasudha and thanks to Arjun too. Okay, so we're 10 minutes into the event. We will use the next 40 out of 50 minutes, or maybe 35 out of 50 minutes, to do a lot of conversation among us. And we will surely keep good time to have the Q&A kind of come in. And maybe I can ask one of the team members from Anamind to kind of just maybe WhatsApp me or something, and I can have a look. If the questions are relatively less, then maybe we can discuss more. So we will be agile on that aspect. Let's enjoy our next 50 minutes as a group. So my first question, look, when this topic comes to my mind, I already told you I feel like as if I was from a different age, from 25 years back. So my first question actually to all the panelists, and you can take turns to kind of share your response if you have it, is in your industries, and it's beautiful. The three of you represent very different industries in some ways. What is the biggest planning challenge in recent times? And when I say recent times, I meant the last 30 odd months, where you felt that either the adoption of AI or the tariff shifts have played a decisive role. Any recent planning challenge that you can kind of think of, and any one of you can start, and please.
I'll take the first. I think, we just recently announced in our, monthly second quarter, right, growth. We're facing a lot of challenges, in the volume growth, especially, given the inflation of cocoa price. Actually, if you compare with the tariff impact to our raw material, we are very locally, sourced and locally, supply and demand sufficient in terms of the context. Given the snacking industry, we are leading players in chocolate and also in baked, biscuits. But the last 2 years, the cocoa price, increase of 50% actually, which is and we our president call it unprecedented kind of a expectation or hitting to us. Though this force us to rethinking our pricing strategies in real time, right? So basically, we need to really actually start to leveraging, these pricing, mechanisms into market to really see impact on consumer demands, given the increasing cost pressure in the chocolate, category. So I think that's one of the major challenges, hitting to the planning field, is how we want to, having a better sort of a elasticity analysis, is predicting demand shifted when we are placing these pricing decisions in different channels. We're not all passing the cost to the consumer pricing part, right? That's why, because we are very cautious on the price, given that today's, if you look at the world economy, is still having a big uncertainty. A lot of consumer confidence is not there in many places. We see inflation increasing US, and then the consumers are more actually conservative to spending more premium. For example, in a case where we have seen diverging kind of spendings in those middle class brands are disappearing, right? So this is critical for us to really using AI as a key tool to understand the response from different consumer behaviors, and these insights really need to give us really allows us to balance the margin protection versus still maintaining the consumer loyalty, given that cost shock is constantly hitting us in the last 2 years. But I think we are now in a better shape, given the cocoa price starting to stabilize, and then I think that's one of the things I want to share related to our industry. Yeah, maybe then over to Vasudha and Arjo, if you have anything. Yeah, also
So maybe I
relevant
can
to-
share my thought. And again, maybe a bit different from what Harrison had shared, kind of echoing to what Manish was calling out, given we are from different industry, the challenges are different. So for consumer health industry, there is a significant portion of our business and portfolio that falls in the seasonal category. Yeah. And you can imagine likes of cold and flu, likes of allergy, and every year, and for the last 2 years, with the global climate change, is getting more and more interesting to predict the start of the season, which is pre-season, in-season, and post-season. And also, you can imagine even cold and flu as a category, but we also have to kind of break it down further by what would be the symptom? Would it be more sore throat? Would it be more dry cough? Would it be more, more cases where people are going for prescription for the solution? Yeah. So I believe for us, the biggest challenge is to get seasonality and seasonality is not like something that you can get accurate, but make assumptions and work around those scenario planning, which is end to end. And in that space, AI is placing a kind of giving us huge capability of creating those scenarios, which was not possible before. And Manish, and I won't kind of pinpoint on you, but even when I started as a planner, the kind of simplicity which was there in demand planning and supply planning, those were easy days, simple days, I would say. Things have changed so much. And now there are so many variables out there. You almost want to pull in everything and create a robust scenario. So it's interesting. And maybe Arjun, if you want to add to it.
Thanks, Vasudha. So actually, I will bring a very different perspective. I think everyone believes that we are over the COVID period and everything has come back on track. But you guys will be surprised. The sporting industry is still reeling and trying to recover because first of the change in habits. I'm pretty sure every one of us lived that, and we moved a lot into cycling, home gym equipments, doing more exercises home. So there was a very drastic lateral shift in terms of the interest, and not just Decathlon, but every other sport giants was really building up, piling up stocks to really cater to the future next 5 years. And then 2022, 2023 came in, and which came as a revenge buying spree of human beings, which completely threw us out and left us hanging dry in a way we never imagined. The second, which we are still struggling, was the channel of sales. Every sporting industry giant expected the digital habits to continue. And there was a huge pump in terms of not just introducing machine learning in understanding and adapting the trends and patterns of consumer behavior, but at the same time, there was a lot of developments pushed into this direction. I'm pretty sure all of you would have heard about Nike, Adidas, Decathlon holding on billions and billions euros of inventory. It was planned for a different future, but thanks to the unpredictable life of supply chain, we are still struggling with that. So of course, tariffs is something which is hitting in a very different tangent, but the sporting industry has still not recovered completely in terms of the issues that post-COVID era created for us. So that's just my piece of mind on the sporting industry. Over to you, Manish.
Thanks, Arjun. I think this is the power of getting three very different industries, for lack of a better word, on one forum, on one topic. And I think we could hear that margin pressures and how pricing becomes so critical in a margin inflation situation, that you have to do something. There is the climate change bringing in an aspect, and the whole industry was planning for so much of digital habits and stuff, and therefore lining up with inventory. I think I'm really very keen to kind of ask a follow-up question to at least one of you, whoever wants to take that question, is because these signals are frequently changing too, right? And all of us as planners, whoever is a planner, wants to work on every signal, but sometimes the choice is to hold on and not work on every signal. So these frequently changing signals as they came through, even more so in a post-COVID world, which is a post-COVID from a health perspective, not from a business perspective. The business is still COVID shocked, if I might say. How do you think your teams have responded to it? Have they responded differently than from 2019 and before, or have they responded pretty much same way? I'm very keen to get at least one, if not two perspectives. Any one of you?
Maybe I can
Yes, please.
kickstart, and we'll love to hear from Harrison and Arjun as well. So I would say in scenarios like this and after COVID, what became absolutely clear that no one can solve it alone. Doesn't matter it's demand planning, doesn't matter supply planning or commercial or finance. We have to come together to solve it holistically. And that's where we actually started seeing, and we used to talk about IBP for I do not know how many decades before that. But since COVID happened, I think that's when everyone realized the real power of working together as a team. and ensuring that, it's almost like the relay race where you pass on the baton to your partner, and you ensure that each and every node gets the right signal and they can still move forward. And I would say in the last, whatever, 3 years or so, post-COVID era, what we have seen more is not only ability to crunch more number of scenarios, but along with the cross-functional team, either with my commercial partners, my make partner, my deliver partner, or finance partners, we have been able to really test the scenarios end to end. What does it mean for demand supply planning? What would it mean for factories? Would we have under leverage? Would we have over capacity utilization? All those scenarios could be tested because we were more organized from an integrated business planning point of view. Harrison, would you want to add?
Yeah, I think Masood and I think when we were in the skincare business, right, we have experiencing that anomaly, because regardless you are now physically co-located or not, right, the requirement of collaboration, of course, it's also stimulated by the information technology growth, where virtually collaboration becomes a normal norm after COVID, and then that continues. I think as of today, we are holding more webinars. But if you look at the scenario planning or a group kind of a bunch of cross-function people gathering together solving problems, that becomes a norm. Even after COVID has concluded as disappeared, where new business norms require us to continue on that. So people who working only on the four walls kind of a side of the traditional way, you done your job, you do a transaction, you hand over PO to the next person, will no longer work. It's not going to be a transactional sort of a handover. It will have to be a organic kind of a sort of a dynamic sort of a response, right? And people have to sitting together. So informations would not actually just based on one node of input. So I think that's for me is the way that we are today operating in. And if people are not having the skills as a planner to really communicate well, or actually to have the right persons in your decision making, often you see inventories, right? Or I think one of the example is you see the requirements that coming into commercial is quickly passing on to supply chain, making the goods. But the problem is usually if you don't have the speed, you are lagging behind the market, where then your decisions could be lagging behind the consumer signal, and then the end-to-end kind of visibility will not be there, because even we say AI today, but the data is still a scarce product, I would say. Even we have many data, right? But relevant data is not always the case. That's why you still need people working together. So I think that's what I want to add on what Vasudha mentioned as a new sort of end-to-end norm for us.
Yeah, super. So maybe Arjun, if you don't have a really tearing need to add to that perspective, I want to give the next flow. It's very naturally coming to my mind. Yeah, and I probably said this in the previously. It's a COVID shocked world in the last 30 months. 2021, 2020, and even 2022 was what we call the COVID era, like a better word. And it's a COVID shocked world. Still trying to grapple over the last 30 months, what really happened and how the business is still impacted in many ways. So I'm very keen to understand, are certain planning skill sets not so relevant anymore? If any one of you feels that, people from my time, if I might say that again, planning skill set was you have to be a super data cruncher. Is it as relevant? Maybe yes, maybe not. Is there another new planning skills on the horizon which is super critical, super essential? Have you seen that kind of trend emerging, that it's less relevant, something of the past, and something of the future is more relevant? Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I would love to take it, Manish. First of all, Manish, you are not as old as you feel. Okay, so coming back on track, I think there are two aspects of it. The first aspect, what Vasudha and Harrison rightly said, the first one was the cleaning of data. AI is not magic. It still needs to be fed data into, which is workable, which gives you potential outcomes, which can help you take a decision. Sometimes people confuse it in the current era of ChatGPT and Gemini. perplexity. We sometimes feel supply chain AI is as simple as that, but it's not. At the same time, what Vasudha said was absolutely right. It is the collaboration and the collaborative approach of different departments. And I think post-COVID, it has become much more evident that these departments has to interact much more. You cannot ignore the noises that comes around. Gone are the days when a little bit noise in the market would be ignored, I would say, for the lack of words, would not really change your decision-making patterns. But now, thanks to machine learnings, neural networks, having small noises in the market could really be a tipping point for a change. And this is where the collaborative approach as well as the clean workable data comes hand in hand. And this is the biggest change also what we see in terms of our planner roles and all, which was traditionally done in a very standard formats, which completely went out for a toss during the COVID and post-COVID. And it was a direct upfront on our face that, guys, either you change or you become obsolete. You got to have a revamp on the approach, how you work with different business units across the table, because it's no longer passing the ball. Secondly, of course, I can come in with billions and billions of sets of data, but until and unless it's cleaned and fed in context with the decision I want to take, it's of no use. So I would say there's a big transition on this skill set of not just pedagogical and the soft skills of teams to have collaborative approach, but also the hard skills of not ignoring the noises of the market and be able to compute it into the systems to take a better decision. Over to you guys.
Very, very well said, Arjun. Vasudha,
Can I add to
Harrison.
it?
Yes, please.
Yes, Manish. And I'm so excited about the journey that now planners are seeing. Yes, there was a time when you can be really strong in analytics and you will have a successful career in planning. Now and there was a time when data scientists were kind of backing and working along with planners to say, yes, the statistical modeling has been taken out from them and then they can work together. But hopefully at some point of time, that piece is also done by, let's say, AI. Now, from planners' perspective, does it make them less? No, actually, in today's world, planners have taken so much more additional, influence and impact. They need to have amazing commercial acumen so that they can work along with what's happening in customer landscape. They can talk the commercial language. They understand what's the business strategy. They need to understand, again, not just commercial acumen, but they also need to understand analytics, even though they are not crunching the data, but how to interpret it. As Harrison was saying, there's too much of data, but too little insight. So how can you bring it together, create an insight out of it, and make it actionable? They need to understand financial part of it. So all the decisions, how do you take a trade-off on it? And then come up with almost like scenario planning and recommendations to say, hey, there's no one path for us. Maybe there are 3 paths, but these are the pros and cons for each and every path. So they're also, storyteller and influencer, so to say, in their own world. So I'm and I've been a planner for most of my life, but I would say this is the best stage to be a planner.
Brilliant, Vasudha. I think if there are any people who are looking for an early career, they would be super excited about supply chain. But I guess planning within supply chain could excite them even more than they feel that way. So Harrison, if you don't have an absolutely tearing need to give an additional input, I just want to get now industry specific in my question. So we were trying to just, if I might say, set the stage for the topic. To going to industry specific, in your 3 industries, as we've said earlier, are pretty different. Let me start with Vasudha first and say that, pretty much all of us know that the regulatory environment in a consumer health industry is far more complex and intense than probably it's in other industries. It is there in other industries, but probably consumer health way too more. So I'm very keen to understand, Vasudha, that whatever AI use cases you would have tried or whatever that you've done in your company or even in your industry, if you want to speak for the industry, whatever comes out of as an AI recommendation, to operationalize it, for lack of a better word, I will say you need to enrich it. You need to give it a human angle. As we keep saying, AI and human intelligence have to work together. So how do you do that, given there is the regulatory environment, which is very, very intense? You can't do everything that AI will recommend because regulatory might not allow you to do so rightfully. So how do you do that? I'm very keen to understand that aspect.
And Manish, I think this is very important question as well. Sometimes, we try to be very simplistic and say AI is the solve for all the world problems. Not really. Yeah, we need to understand what kind of network and what kind of environment are we operating in. Also, each and every industry has different appetite of even the AI adoption. So given a regulatory and, not only from a network perspective, there is regulatory requirements, but also we would want to be very restrictive of the data. And we do not want to open up a lot of information to, let's say, cyber attacks and others as well. Yeah. So if anything, we would be a little bit conservative in our approach to ensure that there is no impact to the product, the quality, and the efficacy, of our products, so to say, and they're not impacted. Now, to come back to your question regarding, okay, so then what does AI is recommending, and how are we actually able to implement it? So in my view, and kind of linking back to the whole COVID scenarios, was a good learning from that point of time was to create BCP sites. Yeah. So if we have already created a backup plans, or there are, for one product, there are 3 different suppliers or 3 different manufacturing sites, then AI can recommend my future production plan linked to those sites. But if AI is recommending a 4th or 5th site to be created, that is 3 to 5 years turnaround time. Yeah. Because a product needs not only to be set from a manufacturing point of view, but it's a registration and it's a long lead time for product stability. Yeah. So that's where we have to find a balance of ability to create scenarios, but also ability to execute them well.
No, so true. I think bang on. Thanks, Vasudha, for that aspect. Now, Arjun, even as a consumer, I've felt that if there was one industry which gets driven a lot, or rather one industry which has a huge amount of volatility through seasons, through demands, and believe me, I've worked in Mondelez way more than chocolates and biscuits. That seasonality and that kind of volatility can come in a sporting good industry, right? And it could be of many kinds. So my question to you is, have you seen over the last 30 months, as AI adoption has happened in different industries and even in yours, and you could speak from an industry standpoint also, if not just Decathlon, how is the usage of it shaping the future of that industry in managing the problem? And the problem here is market is volatile and driven by many things. How do you intend to do it, or how is it being done in the industry? And if you have a Decathlon example, that'd be great. But yeah, over to you.
Superb, Manish. I think it's a pretty normal question to have, and also as a consumer, because you see these brands worldwide with different collections and everything. To first address the AI aspect of it, I'll be very transparent. The industry has been trying to adopt it quite well in advance. It's not just post-COVID, it was even pre-COVID. But there was a little bit of hesitation, I would say. There was a little bit of blocking because there was not a need as such. There was not a driving force as such. And COVID was actually that driving force that really pushed every single company to really deploy it as soon as possible. So that was the main heading, I would say, the adaptation of AI. Now coming to the volatility of the market, it's quite intriguing because we don't face a single kind of volatility. What do I mean by that? The first is the market maturity. So of course, in the sporting industry, how Japan or how South Korea, how really like Switzerland, these countries are way much higher matured, or Germany, one of the biggest market for sporting goods. They are way much more matured, and the expectation out of the sporting giants is very different compared to, I would say, a mid country like India, China, which is still growing up in terms of sporting habits. And then coming out to a very smaller size countries or very niche size countries where sports has not been the fundamental lever in daily lives historically, and now they are slowly and slowly picking up thanks to the awareness, thanks to COVID on the health focus points and all. So the first biggest tackle point for sporting companies is the market at which you are servicing, because the maturity really drives everything else in terms of your demand, supply, planning, inventory. All these things are purely driven by the market. The second one, and this is very, very volatile today, is the volatile trends that picks up. So suddenly you will see that there is a shoe that exists in the industry for 20 years, 30 years, but because it's now being worn by some crazy popular influencers, you will suddenly see a huge peak demand, which, forget about human beings, even AI cannot predict. And then that leads to stock out situations. So these are, I would say, not just social media, but media-driven needs that comes in the market. And of course, then as it's a supply chain which governs everything, you have to face regarding the tariffs, regarding the logistical challenges, the space crunches, the pricing points and everything. And AI today, machine learning today has helped us club all these patterns and predict different scenarios for us. For very simplicity, we internally treat it like a game of chess. As a human being, I would play a couple of moves ahead, but a computer can really help me predict 15, 20, 30 moves ahead in different scenarios. And still, of course, the relevance of human being is still there in the picture.
Yeah, correct. No, thanks, Arjun, for sharing that perspective. Now, I'm keen to hear. I have my own personal view on that too, though. I'm keen to hear from Harrison. Harrison, in the chocolate industry, there was a time long years back when a chocolate was a chocolate, right? But over the years, flavors in chocolates, various flavors, and just for lack of a better word, to increase consumption, have a lot of options of flavors to customers so that they can consume more chocolate is something which is a big lever, right? Now, and we've traditionally done through statistical model, simplistic, for lack of a better word. Have you seen, as Mondelez is kind of, you've become part of it, and in any of the markets, are you seeing that, are we using any kind of artificial intelligence tools to anticipate a flavor trend rather than just what the product manager said? The product manager said, let's get this flavor into the market, versus probably an anticipation of that flavor trend coming from artificial intelligence, which picks data outside of even chocolates of the flavor trends and tries to come up with chocolate flavor trends, flavors accordingly. Have you seen anything of that nature?
Yeah, Manish, I think relate to what Arjun is mentioning, right? In the even before COVID, I think the trend of actually replacing human in heavy data crunching into more like modelings to actually input different drivers, where human brains is thinking more linear, right? We're probably able to processing 2 or 3 drivers of business to be able to actually conclude a forecast, where today we actually see that there's a emerging needs of we using machine to actually helping humans to grasp a factor-based causal analysis into those factors, not only flavor, right, but also in heavy promotional sort of channels. We definitely using pricing, and also using promote mechanisms, and also where we actually also input weather. In some cases, chocolate, for example, in market like India is super temperature sensitive. In some cases, we're using visit coolers actually for deployed to our retailers, right, to store the chocolate, where these are becoming factors of multi-driver sort of demand, planning, forecasting models which we are utilizing. But to be honest, I also want to play at the element. Actually, there is a technology, so modeling of algorithms is available on a shelf, but the real things is lacking is the trust as well, the explainability behind the business assumptions, where you often see there is still a reluctancy of commercial owners or salespeople versus the insight they have, how they adopt the plans or the insights generated by AI, and then because often in today's scenario, many disruptions could actually completely actually destroy the result. Maybe AI even crunch it because there's no history to reference that point, right? Yeah. But to be honest, the AI in those transactional operational planning is play a bigger role because the vast amount of work, right? The productivity challenges facing by every company in terms of the amount of repetitive planning works have to be done in lower granularity is a norm. So which means AI is playing those, decisions which will require more frequent refresh of plan to deploy multiple DCs to serve different kind of a custom drop point. So those operational level, AI predicting actually models is more leveraged. Today, I think Mondelez, we are experiencing and embarking on a bigger transformation journey for planning. And then one of the angles we are, getting is in those areas, definitely we want to improve the less touch planning for, demand planners where they can focus more on the signals currently we are not having observed in history because whatever AI have, it's all based on history. Even large language model, you have a cutoff point of learning to train a model, right? But and also you would sometimes see hallucinations of large language models, right? It's the same. So planners need to using their insights or understanding of how AI work to work with the commercial partners. And first of all, also to identify where the AI wouldn't work in some cases, and then where the collaboration or the visibility kicks in. So today, apart from the machine learning models or AI models, we're going to leverage a platform to collaborate between demand and supply is important. Also critical needs for us is we want to make sure human intelligence enrichment, right, could become the future insights of AI. So we're also implementing a large planning platform that in the company so that we can link demand supply and what is internal and external insights onto one platform, become an enterprise knowledge graph, which we can actually use to be able to also capture that part, which is missing, or as an add-on to the AI, where human plays a value. But definitely, for sure, we see the trend cannot be stopped, right? And the problem is how we build that trust between AI and human, but also leverage the most part of the AI, which is accurate, but also bring the human elements to project in those, the new things, which will become a, I would say, unique winning point versus competitors. Because these new products, these new trials in channels, these are the things which, usually AI are not good at. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. No, thanks, Harrison. I'm just being conscious of the time. I had something in my mind, but maybe this section we can close with one question, and maybe all three of you can take a stab, or one or few more than others. Is again, I say in a post-COVID world, and I call that the COVID shocked world, in the last 30 months, have you seen through various attempts that planning teams have made, either using AI or even without using AI, have you seen measurable improvement in forecast accuracy? So you could have been at very bad 30% in the past, but you saw that you improved from 30% accuracy to 60%. 60 is still far cry from what the leadership would want at 85 or 90, but it's still 30 to 60. Have you seen those kind of improvements over the last 30 months versus the previous months when probably forecast accuracy was not even being talked about in the 2016-17 with that vigor along with the commercial teams? Any one of you wants to take that perspective?
Maybe I continue on the
Please.
one. Given in Mondelez we have been piloting AI models for more than 2 to 3 years in many markets. We do see I would not say a significant, given our base is not too bad actually, improvement gain in markets where we see is around 5 to 10% accuracy. It's not through just purely AI. Definitely AI or statistics more sophisticated modelings gives a 50% portfolio a much better on par or more than planners insights enrichment versus the machine pure output, right? But it gives a lot actually a time for planners really to have a valid discussions with commercial and under situations. For example, we have this impact on Southeast Asia or Middle East, given the Middle East conflicts impact on boycotts, for example. These actions was taken immediately when we see the signals start to weakening in some of the area, and then reflect quickly into our forecast. But also we see that people were using more analytics, although some of the AI models is hard to grasp at the stage. We are still actually improving the visibility of explainability for those models as well to drive more adoption. But definitely with AI helping let's say release the workload from planners on those more stable SKUs, the planners have more time to drive those new product actually predictions and improve that accuracy by having a more time to spend on quality discussions with commercial and their partners. Yeah, for sure.
My apologies to Arjun and Vasudha that I'll not be able to let that question go to the two of you. I'm just very conscious of the time. Let's get on to the now tariff-induced disruption. Okay, and right up front, tariff isn't a thing of just the last 6 months. That's been absolutely dramatic impact of tariff, the US-led actions. But then tariff has always been a variable in many industries at many times from a cost perspective. But let's focus our questions to the extent possible in this section to the recent tariff in the market. So my first question to Sudha on the tariff aspect would be, we know that the landed costs of specific or critical ingredients or packaging always have a probability of getting increased because if the tariff is shifting way too much. Now, I'm keen to understand that from that perspective, are you also scenario planning for these sudden shifts from a sourcing feasibility perspective in your planning processes? Not just demand, not just that, but generally scenario planning these sudden shifts that can happen on the sourcing front because of tariffs. Is that a part of it? Very keen to understand.
Yeah, Manish. So again, going back to my comment regarding planners today are the, almost like they have superpowers and they need to have lots of insight and ability to work on multiple variables and still be able to come up with a plan or a recommendation that's relevant for the organization. Yeah. So, for Kenvue, the overall supply chain is still kind of global in nature. And we do have a couple of sources, which are for every raw material or API that we use, we would have some handful of sources that we can select from, because as we said, right, it's a regulated product. So if we change the sourcing or try to move to a local supplier, there is a stability requirement, there is additional checks that we need to do. So we are bringing in more insights, again, from tariff perspective. One is from a network point of view. So let's say, are there products that are produced in China as of now? I'm just making it up, which were, so to say, sold into US. And what's the impact of that lane from a tariff point of view, just from manufacturing perspective? And then are we able to pivot to other nearshoring from any point of view and identify a non-China source, which will, so to say, mitigate some kind of tariff impact? And kind of linking it back to what your COVID shock conversation was, a lot of companies, when they came out of the COVID shock, they also created China Plus One policy, right? And those who have created those BCPs upfront, just from a structure point of view, they will find the ability to, and Harrison, I'm not sure if we have alternate cocoa plants outside of, your impacted region. But from manufacturing point of view, and even from raw material and API perspective, there are some alternate sites that can be used. And yes, whenever we are doing, again, the tariff conversations are changing, very volatile, right? Every day it's a new news. But whenever we have to do a full assessment of network for the next 3 years, those are the scenarios that we are bringing to the table, is what's the net impact? And do we move or do we retain the current network? So very interesting conversations, keeping us busy.
Yeah, absolutely, Vasudha. And it is very clear that it does impact you, big mind. I'm keen to ask Arjun specifically, is tariff really a very big driver in planning and procurement strategies when it comes to a company like Decathlon? Or Yeah, maybe for Nike, yes, but I'm just very keen to hear your inputs because how is it for Decathlon from a tariff perspective when it comes to planning and procurement strategies?
So thanks, Manish. Actually, to be very transparent, Decathlon is more European and Asian centric company. We do not have such a big footprint in US. We do have it in Southern America and Canada, but we don't exist so far in US. So actually, we are really not so much impacted by tariffs. Luckily, so far, I would say.
Yeah.
But as you said, for industry, and I would just take away the word what Vasudha said was nearshoring. I think a tariff is not the only driver for companies to decide should I shift my manufacturing, sourcing, procurement policies. But every single company wants to create nearshoring options on the table, not just with the pricing and the tariff volatility, but also the supply chain in terms of reducing the lead times and all. So nearshoring, trying to go as localized as possible is always one of the priorities for companies like sporting goods, I would say, and it's not really tariff-driven decisions because these are very short terms and the supply chain lead times we are talking about are quite huge.
Quite huge. Yeah, perfect. No, thanks, Arjun. We've talked of planning tactically when it comes to tariff, if it impacts us. We've talked of planning in the age of AI because planners have a very different role relatively versus few years back or 2 decades back. I'm keen to understand, and I'm just, again, as I said, very conscious of the time. I think some questions are already coming in, so we'll keep the last 6 minutes for that. Maybe I can come with last 2 questions to all of you, and any one of you or 2 of you could take that, which is, in this new age, if we can call it, as we've said, which is very AI heavy and will become heavier and policy disruptive. And we've just seen an example of that over the last 5 months when it comes to tariff. Do you think the new generation, and I mean new generation, I'm meaning those 21 to 26-year-olds, as they get into supply chain, do they need a different skill set? Or what's that one new skill set that you would say they need differently to thrive in that new world? And follow up to any one of you after that first is answered is, do you think our universities globally, with whatever experience you've got of that young talent, producing graduates ready for that shift at all? And obviously we come from a generation which is trying to adapt itself, but these are ones who are coming from these times, a very AI heavy, very policy disruptive time. So any one of you could take that. Okay. Just mention one skill that you think.
Maybe I can take, given I'm actually doing the thing for transforming and finding the future talent, building the next generation planner, right? So for me, I think one definitely bigger thing is I think the new planners, at least you may not become a professional data scientist, but you need to have a working knowledge, understand how AI works as a process, because eventually you want to know what is the good input versus the good output, right? Because often people will say, oh, AI is complex, has a superpower versus human, but if you feed AI garbage, it will have a garbage out. So basically, how AI works is actually need to be understood by future planners, and then they need to have the eye to also spot on where AI hallucinate. Also, where AI actually gives you a wrong result, which is where the human will still play the big value. The second part on compensation on that given many regulatory changes or disruptions, is the leadership skills of planner. You should not, become still a siloed planner. We are talking about business planner, end-to-end business planners, where you have both supply chain network knowledge, but also equipped with commercial acumen, with the communication skills to be able to influence, right? Build stories to actually communicate where the insights you're actually getting from your supported data science or even yourself. So I think that's 2 critical, strengths is needed, right, for the future next generation planners. And on top of that, I think to follow up question, maybe after I hand over to Vasudha and Arjun to add on, is for universities, I do see there's observation of people adding this course intentionally, right, on to teach, what is AI good. But I think the real practice teaching in terms of this part is missing, I feel, is part of the leadership and how you actually interpret the result, communicate back to the different part of people versus you learn fancy models, right? Of course, every young generations are not, tech, phobia, right? But they actually really need the skills how to interpret that, to explain to different, generations of people to really adopt these, right? So I think that's the part I see the trend also need to pick up. Yeah.
Thanks, Harrison. Arjun, Vasudha, do you think universities are producing enough, at least the ones that you've got an experience of, the young talent, 22 to 26-year-olds?
So just to add, I think we need to fundamentally agree that when the world is evolving, universities are part of the world. Sometimes the evolution of the companies happen before the universities, and sometimes it's vice versa. So I think and also agree with Harrison, the universities across the world are really putting up their efforts to introduce new curriculums and introduce new horizons tactics, which can help fresh graduates, postgraduates to tackle the problems of the world. But I think it will still take some more time, because we are still pretty much used to of the traditional setup of things, and post 2020 has really rocked the world from top to down. So it will still, in my opinion, take a bit more of the time. And the only message for me I would share with all the newbies is be curious. Supply chain is driven by curiosity. Remain curious.
I think that's probably one of the best advice that could have come, Arjun. Thank you so much. Vasudha, anything to add before we start taking the question?
Maybe just one quick comment again on what Arjun was saying is keep a learner's mindset.
Yeah.
The world is going to evolve so much more, and university never taught me enough, and I had to continue to learn outside of graduation and still learning. So ensure, and the world is going to evolve so much more faster as we move forward. Yeah. And second thing would be, since there are going to be disruption is going to be a norm, let's ensure that we have that resilient mindset. Do not get caught with a crisis. Crisis is going to happen every day in and day out now. It comes with a different label, but the supply chain practitioners should have that habit of rolling up the sleeve and learning from it, and then moving to that next. Okay, so what can be applied? So that mindset has to change.
I think Vasudha, those are golden words from all three of you. Rishi or someone from the team, I am seeing some questions. So let me just probably take that question right away. I think this is Lance saying, I see teams wanting to jump onto the AI train, but they miss building the foundation. Beautifully, actually, very beautifully said. What key foundational elements in addition to data enrichment and governance do you feel are important to effectively drive AI forward? What foundational element is critical in addition to data enrichment and governance, which will be important? Let me take a stab here, and the stab to me was something that Vasudha said, and I really love that, which is the planners of today need to understand the language of the commercial world very well. And they just cannot, and it's to me a very foundational element. You cannot just talk the supply chain language with the business. It will cut only this much ice. If you want to cut a lot of ice, the way it gets done is when you understand business as a supply chain professional as well, or nearly as well as a business person, and talk the business language with them. So don't talk too much supply chain language, but talk a lot of business language when you're trying to get your things done. To me, that is very foundational beyond the data enrichment and governance. So I'm picking from what Vasudha had said, Vasudha, if that had not crossed your mind already. Anything to add on that foundational piece? Any one of you?
I think we talked about few things, which was having an effective collaborative end-to-end team led by things like integrated business planning is very foundational. So AI can solve the models on, what can those pathways be, but you still have to go ahead and execute it. And that can happen in real world, right? So that has to be there.
Oh, absolutely. That's a beautiful ad. Thanks, Vasudha. Arjun, Harrison, I think you responded to that, but Arjun?
Yeah, thanks, Lance, for the question. And there are multiple, I would say, foundation, but I will just key highlight few things. The first is the process of trust, and it's one of the fundamental of governance and the enrichment that is important is the trust building process, I would say. And that second, I would say, remember where to plug what solution. If you bring a knife in a gunfight, you're definitely going to lose. So AI in itself is meaningless if we are not able to identify at what stage, at what intensity, at what kind of level integration we want to plug it in it.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Arjun. I know it is 6:30 Singapore time, which means people will start dropping off now. But a question has come literally seconds before that, so we should take up that question right away because I'm sure that gentleman will be still there. How do you address resistance to change from users in moving from conventional planning today to AI stroke ML based planning and truly move to adoption? And I think that's in bold. I really like it. He's really thought through this question. Not no touch, but real adoption, which is no touch essentially. What the system is proposing. How do you balance that in is very, very critical because there'd always be resistance to change. Any one of you have thoughts beyond the fundamental ways in which we should adopt resistance to change and work around it, but the conventional planning to the new planning. Any thoughts from anyone?
Maybe I can take. Yeah, I think
Yeah, please.
this is the question. I think we are, constantly, influencing or managing our change journey because we are exactly on to this point, right? Although I said we had a 2 to 3 years experiences in generating forecasting AI, the adoption level is still not satisfactory. Yes. The reason behind, as I mentioned, is the key shift between the trust of the models, because usually if you want to look at AI, is often a black box for human. So that's why we need to actually have a modern technology also visualize what is the decomposition of the drivers AI is giving. Although you could not achieve a perfect balance between achieving a best accuracy versus explain fully, because the algorithms, many algorithms is not easy actually to understand in a way because it will having a multiple features of data to be able to build that output, right? But to build that relevance is a key. Then you actually using this communication skills, what we said, right? Or data visualization skills to bridge the understanding with commercial driver owners, which is promotion, and then interact human with the AI input, feeding more actually relevant data to AI, then you actually see the virtuous circle will establish from that pattern. So for me, the critical part is, first of all, you have the demand planner in the future generation become a data quality controller with the commercial owners, or multiple owners could be, disruption, event owners, right, from customers, or could be, pricing from finance, could be marketing owners from investment media. But you need to actually become a gatekeeper of the quality input to your AI model. But often this is also a big job of data governance. We talk about how to make sure your process connects. So fundamentally, apart from you become a gatekeeper, you need to actually have a good, robust process to feed that overall working process, how AI actually feed back into business execution. So it often requires also commercial actually organizations to leverage AI to generate business. So we know often from in the retail part, right, in Amazon, Alibaba, they use this already to go into digital marketing. So if you build that kind of a connection with your forecasting model, then the adoption become more natural. So I think we are in this forefront also working with commercial partners, because in many trade optimization, analysis is in digital, like where we place our media or where we change in pricing, in those commercial executional tools, it not often become a predictive analytics, more like a prescriptive, right? We are causing or causal models which will directly generate business revenues by changing different mechanisms. So I think these are the key things involving with owner of the data drivers into the conversation. Then you subsequently drive better adoption. I think that it was a key change journey. Every company need to think through that, linking back to business driver owner. Yeah.
Yeah, super. I'm conscious of the time, but Arjun, Vasudha, anything you want to add to that? How to drive adoption and avoid that resistance change or tackle that resistance to change?
Yeah, I would love to take it, Manish. So
Please.
thanks, Rahul, for your question. I don't know, and I think we don't know from which industry you are, because there is no one answer fit all, and because of the criticality the industry brings on the table. But hoping from whichever industry you are, in terms of adoption, I would say it's always tough, but at the same time, try to make it as simple as possible, which helps people at different levels move towards that change. You'll be surprised, but 10 simple macros Excel sheet is the simplest machine learning format that exists today. So AI is not magic. Try to make it as simple as possible. And yes, the beginning of the resistance to change would exist, but the simpler format that you would be able to present and explain with the result-driven approach, I think people would love to embrace this change after living the volatile world for the last 4 or 5 years.
Beautifully put, Arjun. I think simplicity is way too powerful, and often we as individuals just love to make things complex rather than make things simple because they're tough. To make things simple is never easy. Vasudha, anything you want to add? Otherwise, that was the last question.
See, looks like it. We can sit here whole evening and talk
Great.
because I don't know where 1 hour passed away. I like what happened
Yeah.
here.
Hello,
Yeah.
Manish.
But
Sorry to
the
interrupt.
questions are
Oh.
so good. And maybe the
Okay.
piece which I do want to add
Yeah.
is see, the reason for resistance is either, the planners are too, they're kind of married to their work and they're really married to their approach. And maybe the piece which you have to kind of influence is we are here to create an impact, right? Which is choose or battle wisely, where we are going to spend time and where we are going to let go, which is like really no touch. And wherever we spend our time, which is building that commercial acumen, getting that customer insight, and trying to do new things, new way, so that the whole job scope, just imagine if it stays as is, how Manish was doing it or how I did it 10, 20 years back, no one will sign up for that job.
No
You'll
one.
not find talent out there. So that job scope has to be also get enriched by mix of AI and ML to ensure that you are able to attract new talent. And I think that's a piece which, along with so many superpower, you also have to have that human mindset on
Yeah.
how do you attract the right talent. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Vasudha. Sorry, Harish, I think you were about to say something to us, but the
Yes,
four of
yes,
us got too passionate. Please, towards you.
No, it's
Sorry.
fine. That's fine. Like we have one more question in the Q&A session. We
please.
missed it. It is that how much more accuracy can AI tools provide compared to traditional planning tools and human intelligence?
I actually can give some experience we have, right? It really depends on data quality input. The performance could vary largely, right? We see examples of more than 20-30 improvement. We see examples sometimes AI cannot be human. It all depends on really, for me, identify the right driver, make sure the quality of data is there, and for sure, I think that's why I mentioned it. One of the key advantages today in the operational short term, right, weekly or daily, more granular planning, AI definitely beating human much easily because simply you cannot handle that amount of data, that amount of granularity by human. So for sure that adoption we can see is more. So demand sensing, is one of the things that many retailers are adopting, right? Because simply you want to manage the shelf with availability, but also with the best inventory situation. So to me, input is very key. Usually often differs by channel, but you can easily achieve 10 above accuracy if you got a good input. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Harrison. Harish, any other questions were there or?
No, not it.
Super.
It's done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Harish. So maybe I'll pass the stage back to either Rishi or Sheetal. I guess we already have some people dropping off. I want to thank everyone here, but I pass the stage back to Rishi or Sheetal to kind of just share the last thoughts.
Well, thank you everyone for this extremely insightful session. I think the mix of different industries was really interesting to note from all of you, and thanks for taking our time. I know it's very varied time zones at 4 or 5 different countries. Especially Vasudha, you're really far off, and and it must be really late in the night. So thanks a lot. Thanks, Manish, for wonderfully anchoring this session, and thanks for all the participants for joining in. We'll let you go and enjoy your evening, and we will share the recording with you shortly.
Super. Thanks, Rishi. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Great day.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.